Welcome, everybody. Excited to jump into another session talking through some Canva tools today. If I haven't met you, it's great to connect with you. My name is Nathan Wells, and I work for Phygital Labs. This is a part of our Phygital Learning series where we dive into different ways that we believe can be helpful in the classroom for everyday educators and education leaders. This session in particular, as the slide shows, is really about how to make presentations interactive. How do we take our normal presentations that we're giving either in a class or to colleagues, could be either one. I actually will show one example that I've used with colleagues when I was still in the school environment. I was a seventh grade social studies teacher, a tech coach, and worked in the district office managing the tech coaches and kind of that bridge between curriculum and IT. And so sometimes when I present professional development in my district, it was about giving teachers a chance to choose what is it that was most helpful for them? What do they want to learn about? And so kind of that choose your own pace. And so we're going to talk a little bit about some of that. So today, though, let's kind of dive in. I'm going to show you how this is structured and set up for today. So we have four main pieces we're going to talk through. The first three is going to be the chunk of our time. And the way I structured this is one of the ways you could set something up for students. So if I shared this presentation with you right now, you could go to the section that was most helpful for you. And that can sometimes be called like a choose your own adventure. So if I clicked on choose your own adventure, it's going to jump me over, and I didn't click on it, sorry. It's going to jump me over to that section. And so it takes me right to that section, and then I can just learn about that. And then whenever I want to come back, I can click on the little home button. So that's just an example. We're going to talk more through that. But everything in today's session, I'm going to try to model how you could make things a little more interactive in your class. And Canva makes it really easy to do that. There's some really great tools that are just built in. You don't need to jump around and figure things out and get super technical. It really makes it easy to get going. So we're going to talk about animations, transitions, embedding, kind of that choose your own style navigation I just showed, and then just a couple wrap-ups about design elements. So that's kind of where we're going to go. If you're with me live, please use the chat to let me know if something you'd like to know more about, or you have questions, or you've tried it and you have some great examples yourself you want to share. And then if you're watching the recording, of course, use the chat or use social media to reach out. You can find us on Phygital Labs at all the socials, and also I'm at EdTech Wells on everything except LinkedIn. It's just my name. So love to stay connected with you. So let's jump in and talk about animations. So animations and transitions can be super helpful just to change the pace, to help students know what's coming. And also animations can add just a little bit more of an interesting element, right? Instead of these boring slides that always look exactly the same or don't catch students' attention, you can add in an animation like, oh, wait, what was that, right? Spark their interest, help them understand that this is something to pay attention to, or it could just be something fun, but again, it's engaging them in the content of what they're doing. So we're going to look at some of that. So you may notice now that I pointed it out, I'm using transitions in most of my slides. So this kind of header slide had just a very simple slide in and slow reveal of the words. And you're going to see that on every header slide. So every time we're changing to a new section, to a new header slide, section slide is probably the better word to use, you're going to see that same animation. So I'm not using animations all crazy and transitions rather all over the place. They're purposeful as we transition to the next thing. And then same thing on my text slide. This one kind of comes in a certain way. And I use that same transition with these types of slides. So transitions should be purposeful. They should have a reason to be there. All of the things we're going to talk about today should have a purpose towards how do we help students learn better? How do we engage them in the content? And when I say students, I should say learners to be more general, because this is perfect for working with adults as well, for working with younger learners or older learners and those in professional settings. So this is not just for a certain age of kids. all of us look at being engaged, right? And not wasting our time or not, being able to stay with what's being taught. So a couple of quick things we're going to look through, and then I'm going to jump in and actually try this out. So page transitions, you've kind of seen some examples of, and we can find those in Animate. They've made it easier over the last, I forget, 6 months, a year, where now it's just right atop the page, so you can find that quickly. But for page transitions, you can go there, but you can also click on the little thumbnails and choose that. And the same for animations. You can select whatever it is you're wanting to animate. And I'll give you an example here. I have my fun little pig, and I animated him to kind of get our attention and jump around the page. That was a very, very quick and easy thing I created. So we're going to look at that as well. So let's jump over to Canva. I'm going to go to my home page, and I'm just going to click on presentation. So if you would like to do this along with me, you can feel free. So I am just going to open a blank presentation and start from that. So in my blank presentation, and you could use a presentation you already have created or a template Canva has, I'm just going to use the blank white slide to help us be easy to focus on. I'm going to go into elements and I'm just going to search for, well, I'll just use a recent search I did, and we're going to animate our airplane here. So I'm going to grab this old airplane, I'm going to resize it. And what I did for object animation is any animation or any object rather you have on your slide, and that could be text as well. So it doesn't matter what it is. You're going to put that wherever you want the animation to start. So let's say I'm going to do it up here, and we're going to bring this plane in for a landing. And so I'm going to move him up here. And then once I select it, so I select it, I'm going to click on the word animate right there in that top bar. So you notice anytime I click on something else on the page, you see there's animate. So I'm going to click on the airplane, I'm going to click animate, and I get this left-hand navigation. And this left-hand navigation gives me some general animations that will just help that object stand out a little bit, right? Like something that quickly comes onto the screen or it kind of jiggles around, right? So there's reveal, there's different ways that you could animate this object. But I'm going to use the one that's probably most unique to Canva. You can do this in other systems, but Canva was the first place I know I saw it, and that's this little B right here that says create an animation. So when I click on that, it gives you a visual, but then it also gives you some tips. And so the easiest thing to know is that you're going to click and drag. So I'm going to click on this airplane, and he's going to fly in slowly and kind of go down until he lands. So now it's going to preview it. You can kind of see it jump there a little bit. And you can help with this a little bit. One of the things that's helpful is to go to the style and click smooth and steady. Those kind of help it a little bit. So you can see the steady makes it a little bit better than my jumpy. Same with smooth. Smooth, yeah, it's a little bit faster. And then you can also change the speed. So that can go really fast. And then the one I usually like to do, it depends on the element, is appear on click, like I did with the pig you saw a second ago. So that's what you can do there, and then I click done. That's like saving it. And so now when I come to this slide, I can click on that, and you always have to test it in present. So I'm going to click present and then use presenter view so it doesn't pop out big. And then you can see it. There it is. So whenever I click on this slide and start presenting it, you see it go across. So that's kind of fun. So that's what that is. And then if I want to, I'm going to add a new blank slide. So if I want to transition from one slide to the next, let's say this next slide has something else about modern day airplanes. Let's just have something on the screen. So I can do this two ways. I can go to animate again, and this is page animations. Or what I think is a little bit easier to figure out is on the slide itself, click the three dots, go to add transition. So this is specific to transitioning from one slide to the other. Animating the page has to do with animating everything on the page as you transition. So there's kind of two pieces to that. But this is kind of a general. I like the slide, so it just quickly goes across, or the wipe or stack. You can see how those kind of flow across. So there's different ways you can transition the entire slide over, which can make sense depending on what your content is. So for this one, flow makes a lot of sense because we're going from the older airplanes to the newer airplanes for this example. And then again, I can preview this by going to present. And then when I go to the next slide, you can see how that comes across, right? I can test that out. I'm just going to hit escape on my keyboard to go back. So that's transition and animation. So those are kind of fun. And then I have a cheat sheet I'll give you at the end that kind of walks all through this as well, so you don't forget some of this or are curious, oh, wait a minute, what were those steps? I'll give you that so you have access to those. Now, for embedding content to make your content a little bit more engaging, and really, I see embedding content as adding everything to one place. So a lot of times, I know when I was in the classroom, before we had some tools like Wakelet and Canva and so those, even Padlet, maybe right at the end of when I was in the classroom, that it was hard to guide students so that they weren't like going to this website and then this website and then jumping around all over the place. So I like trying to capture everything in one place. And usually I will do that in the presentation I'm working on, at least using that to link to. So for today, for example, I'm using this presentation. And then towards the end of this presentation, I have a link to our help document. And even in that help document, or kind of a takeaway document, I have links to other resources. So just trying to keep everything in one place. You always know where to come to, even after the session is done, after our time learning together is done. So that's what I think of this as for embedding content. You notice that transition was the same. So embedding the content into our Canva slides is gotten easier and easier. So you can go to the bar on the left and choose upload or choose elements and embed. And there's a couple of ways to get to those. And I have those listed here and also in that document. But honestly, the easiest way for websites, for YouTube videos, for a lot of different interactive elements, I use PhETSIMS, which is a science experiment simulator that you can get to for free. It's PHET, PhET. Those science experiments even embed cleanly. So there's a lot of things. There's graphing calculators out there. So there's a lot of tools that you can actually embed into a Canva slide really easily as well. Now, I also want to call out, I'm talking about Canva slides, Canva presentations is what Canva calls them today. But know that a lot of this works exactly the same on a Canva site and also in editing like a social media design and a poster and a whiteboard. So a lot of the Canva tools, other than docs and videos, work pretty much the same with all of this content. So a lot of the things that I'm doing in a Canva presentation work exactly the same across the different tools. So be aware of that. Okay, so again, let's check this out and I'll show you an example that's embedded in this presentation. So here I have this video, and I don't know if you noticed the transition was a little bit different for that. So he's just jumping up on the page. So I have a video. Anytime you have a interactive element on a Canva page, even if it's created by Canva AI, I don't have an example of that here, but I'll show you that. Usually you have to double click to interact with it. So just be aware of that. If you're like, why is this not working? It probably is. You just need to double click on it. So this video jumps right in and I can use it. It's embedded, right? So I can use it just like any YouTube video to move around and look at the different phases of mitosis and what I need to know about that. And that's what this video is about. So there's great ways to do that. And the video audio is going to play through your computer just like normal. And then I can turn on, captions if that's helpful. And just like I was in YouTube itself. So it embeds straight into the Canva presentation slide, just like I would anywhere else. And all I did was copy and paste. So if I go out to the YouTube link and click on share and copy that, or a lot of times you can just copy the URL. What I appreciate though, for this example, is I can go to the exact spot I want it to start, click share, and tell it I want it to start at a minute 26, and then copy that link. So now, let's go back to this example. When I paste it onto this page, so all I did was Control C. Well, here I click the word copy, I guess. And then over here, I just hit Control V and it dropped it right on the page. And then I can just resize that however is appropriate for what I need. right? And then look for that center. You see that purple-ish kind of icon line that comes across the screen. There's the dead center. And so now I have that, and it's easy to interact with during our presentation. And again, you can always go and click present. Actually, it's right here at the top of the screen. And I can jump in and view this as it'll look like when I get to that point of my presentation with my students or with my class or whatever workshop I'm giving or whatever it is. So that's an important piece to be aware of. So that's easy to do. And then the other piece with this is just the other ways you can do it. So I also was going to grab a web page. Just going to grab this really quick. I thought I had it open and it closed. Duh. Since it closed quickly, I'll just use our Phygital Labs website. So if I want to add another website, I can literally just click anywhere on the page and click paste or just Control V, and it is going to allow me to drop that in. Now you notice how this one came through just the words, which is actually kind of funny. That came through like that. Let's grab a different one. What I'm looking for is something that will embed. Okay, it's gonna make a liar out of me. That's fun. A lot of times these will embed right on the page. Now Canva presentations will, Canva sites will. So let's grab another site handy. Guess I don't. Okay, so I'll just grab another Canva presentation. So we're going to click share, copy link. And when I click that here, there you go. It just embeds it because it's another type of Canva element. A lot of websites will grab or drop in the link to them, but not necessarily be interactive like this, as you saw. Now this is purely interactive because it's another Canva page, which is kind of cool. And so you can drop those right into the page. Same thing with a Canva site. We'll drop in like that too. I don't know about a Canva doc. I just thought of that. Actually, I haven't checked. Let's do it together. No, not a Canva doc. Okay, I wondered. Canva docs can be a little bit different. Yeah, that's all right. So that's kind of cool to find out, kind of see how that works. Right. And then the choose your own adventure is kind of fun. So the choose your own adventure, the idea is that you have a slideshow, a presentation set up so that you can kind of let students pick and choose what they want to focus on and what they should be going to next. So it could be something where they're deciding that, I'm just going to go to the next slide here, that they're deciding that they want to choose what they're going to learn about or how they're going to learn about that topic. So for instance, choice boards are a common thing that we use this a lot for. You still see this some nowadays, but it depends. So with a choice board, for instance, at like a centers activity or something, they know they have to learn about this topic, but they can choose how they want to learn about this topic. So maybe there's a link to a video, there's a link to a read aloud, there's a link to the article or like a PDF. And then there's maybe links of ways that they can show their learning. They can build a presentation, write a document, record themselves talking about it over a video, whatever it is, right? So the choice board kind of gives them that. And so you could link to different things in this presentation slide. The other way you can do this is differentiated. So again, same content perhaps, but you have a little bit simpler to read content in one section, a couple slides over, maybe there's some that's a little bit more, and then later there's something a little bit more. And then one of my favorites is you give this to students and it has the main content, math comes to mind for some reason, or maybe like a biology class, where there's the main content that the students need to answer, they need to work through, there's some problems they're working on. But then if they need support, there's a link to a video and it's just maybe the next slide or further in the presentation or step-by-step instructions to an example like they're trying to work on. So it could just be an extra support, something else to help them in the journey and the work that they're learning and working through. It can also be an interest. So they have some extra time, or they have, well, they want to go deeper in a topic. And some students are really interested in this facet of it, and other students are really interested in a different facet. Again, my mind goes to biology or some type of history, where they want to learn more about a specific person or a specific event or place, the language, the culture, right? You can have some of those linked in there. And so it gives them kind of a choose their own adventure style learning environment, so that they're still kind of contained. You're still kind of directing and helping them decide what's going to be best for their learning, still making sure you're meeting your learning objectives and all of that, but it's giving them some choices, which is amazing. We empower students to be able to learn on their own a little bit within boundaries. It helps them be better learners later on. So we're going to look at that as well. So the way I did some of this, there's a couple ways you can do this. So we can use some text, and then we can also link directly to different slides and to different outside activities. So for this text, let's just say I'm going to new airplanes, watch, a video. Actually, this works best when they're separate text boxes. So that's just a little FYI, right? And so now the new airplanes, let's link that to the next slide. And one of the best things to know, or like quick and easy tip, I should say, to know about linking between slides is naming the slides, especially if you have a long slideshow. To have them named makes a big difference. And you can do that by clicking on the little slide thumbnail at the bottom of my screen here. You see the 3 dots. And then at the very top, there's a pencil to add, or you can just double click in there to add a page title. So we're going to do new airplanes. And then I'm going to do this one as video. And so now when I go to link this text box, I can click the 3 dots or right click and click the word link. And you can see there's also a keyboard shortcut of Control K. Just FYI, if you didn't know, Control K is pretty universal. I've used it in Microsoft Word, in Google Docs, in Microsoft Teams, in Slack, and I've used it in a lot of places, and Control K is pretty universal to add a link to something. So I'm going to click on that. And so I could just, if I had a link to an outside resource, like YouTube video, website, something else, I could just paste it here. But also there's a scroll option, and you'll see here's each of the slides in my presentation. And so if you knew the name of it, that would make it a little bit faster. So for instance, if I start typing up here, new airplane, that was there and then it left. Scroll down again. There we go. See how it singles out that slide. And then I can click that. So now I'm not linked to an outside resource. I'm linked to that page. And then same thing here. I'm going to go link, click the video. And then now when I'm in the presentation, I can click new airplane and it jumps over to that. Now, the thing we also want to add is a way to get back. So we need to get back to the home page. Now, in this instance, because there's only a couple of slides, it's easier, but we wouldn't normally be able to do that. So that's why in my presentation, I created this little home button. And I wanted it to be really obvious. If you were doing this with students and it was something they were used to, maybe you could use a different kind of icon. Maybe you spell out the words, home button, glossary, table of contents, whatever makes the most sense for your environment and what your students are used to, and be able to do that, which is kind of cool. And so you could do that. And so when I click the home button, right, I go back to to the beginning, and then I jump back into this. So those are kind of some simple ways you could do that and be able to have that all together. So I also want to walk us through a couple of things I've done that I want to point out and make it easier for students to follow these types of things. And to do that, I'm going to share with you all the document that I put together. Oh, it's over here. So this is the document that you can have in a second. I'll show you the link that kind of walks through how to create some of these things, how do I find transitions and animations and embedding, and some tips around that, some things to look out for, some troubleshooting, things like that. So I hope that's really helpful. And I want to call out some things that I also did on purpose. So one, you notice even in this document, hopefully, it is visually appealing and visually gives you cues on where to go. So our eyes generally go to the biggest, most color contrast thing first. So in this case, it would be the very top, interactive presentations with Canva. The second place, a lot of times, is down at an angle. A lot of times we think about a Z on a page or on a presentation slide. And so I would assume your eyes next went to the two buttons I have towards the bottom of the screen, which is those kind of purplish colors, right? Different indigo and adding interactive elements and choose your own adventure. And so these are actually buttons that can help navigate this document, which is super helpful. I'm going to refresh my page here. There we go. Whatever reason is looking at it like a slideshow. So I'm going to grab that, maybe fix that real quick, hopefully. All right, it's not letting me click those for some reason. I'll come back to that. So I'll fix those in a second. It's the same link that I'm going to give you. I'll just update those buttons. So those buttons are going to lead you to the other documents that I have, and that allow you to see those different elements. So for instance, this is the adding interactive elements document. And so in here, I have some call outs, so some things to kind of think about, like, why do we do this? And then also a link to some other support materials. This one, for instance, is from the Canva Design School, specifically talking about how do we add in those magic animates. That's what that little flying pig I used was. And then the kind of the steps to get there. And then, how to use it and things to look out for. Because the one thing we want to do is we want to make sure students are engaged and are a part of the content and not distracted by what's going on the screen. If we're distracting them by what's going on the screen, no animations, right? Like stay away from them if it ever becomes a distraction. So I want to think about that. And then some possible things to think through, like why is it not working? What is happening? I have some call outs there. And then same with embedding. What does embedding help you do? How can we do it? What types of things can we embed? Excuse me. And then how is that easiest to navigate? And then again, if there's some errors, what could happen? What can make that easier to navigate? So hopefully those kind of call outs help. And then I also, back on the main page, so I was going through that button right there. Back on the main page, we also have some curriculum ideas. So if you were thinking about using any of these three tools, three types of ways to engage students in presentations, what could you do? So here's some elementary by subject area and some secondary by subject area, and then some ideas and ways to stay connected and get further support. So I'll just grab the last document. So choose your own adventure. And the choose your own adventure is very similar, but it kind of calls out like, maybe how do you plan this? What does it look like to build out the navigation? And then what do you need to think about? So just kind of some best practices, some ideas. So the types of choose your own adventure, which I kind of talked through already, but this is just to help you remember. And then again, some troubleshooting things in case you were like, oh, students can't figure out how to get back and forth, what is missing, or something's just not working. So here's some common things. And, just FYI, I created this document so that you didn't have to go looking, but I asked two different things, just so you know. I asked Canva AI, which is built in to Canva, to help me write some of this. And I also used another AI tool called Claude to help me write some of this. So I did not write this entire document. That's the beauty of what AI helps us with, right? Because I wouldn't have thought of all of these. So it's great to know that you have those tools. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, just really quickly, so I'll go back to my example here. Whenever I am curious, I can click on Ask AI, and it gives me some suggestions. It can rewrite this text, turn it into an image, or suggest improvements. And then under text over here, actually, it's a text. Oh yeah, Magic Write. I was like, wait a minute, I'm missing something. Magic Write, I can ask it, and this is what I did for that document. Help me write a description right? And then I click the go. And so it helps write some text that you can then, of course, double check, make sure it's appropriate, and all those kind of things. And it even calls that out. AI can make mistakes, and I can say more, this, but, and I can ask it to make changes. I can insert it and then make it appropriate for our reading and what we need to do. So that's where I got some of this content, just so you're aware of how that kind of and how you can do something like that yourself, which is super helpful. And then of course I formatted and made it appropriate to what we were doing, which is helpful. So hopefully that is helpful, and these resources will be available to you. And something to just think through. So before we begin creating an interactive presentation, remember the best presentations are there to serve the learning, not the technology. So I love that phrase. Claude came help me come up with that. You know, it's this idea of serving the learning, not the technology. So if it's technology for technology's sake, don't use it, right? Don't use technology. Get out the notebook and paper. There's nothing wrong with that. But if the technology serves the learning, helps the student go farther with their learning, then let's use it. Let's find a way to make that happen. And also, it doesn't need to be overwhelming. So if it's taking you an hour to create a simple slideshow, maybe a slideshow isn't what you need to be doing, or maybe those animations and transitions aren't actually helpful. Yes, it's a little bit slower the first time you do it versus the 10th time you do it because you're learning. There's nothing wrong with that. But if it's consistently slowing you down, let's not do it just for the sake of doing it. So the idea here is to keep things simple, to keep things in the view of learning, and to help things work so that you are engaging your students and helping them meet your learning objectives. We want students to move forward. So love to stay connected with you. Before I do that, I forgot I hadn't presented this yet. So here is that short URL. So that's the short URL. For those of you that are live, I'll put in the link as well in the chat. And then in the YouTube, I'll drop it in there. And then that's the link. You can do also scan the QR code to grab that document. And I'll fix those buttons so that way it works smoothly in a moment. And then also, we go. Love to stay connected with you. So Phygital Labs, we are on all the socials, and then we run these webinars. Our Phygital Learning series is throughout the year. We do it multiple times a month. My colleague Becky and I go back and forth. I lead a lot of the Canva ones, and then also doing some on AI, and we have some more coming up. So check that out on our website. It's linked in this QR code and also at the link tree. And you can also subscribe to our newsletter to find out info more. So thanks for hanging out with me a couple minutes over, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks, everybody. Take care.